Are we all stupider, or did Gilmore Girls just end 20 years ago? Could be both. In my opinion, the ending of a show like Gilmore Girls is exactly why there is such a rampant epidemic of anti-intellectualism that's happening in the world, and especially on the internet. You cannot throw a nickel in a comment section without someone being like, it's not that deep, bro, to something that's like objectively life-threatening. I'm like, babe, the only people saying it's not that deep are people with really bad depth perception. I'm like, it actually is the middle of the ocean with nary a shore around, not a lifeboat, not a rock. There's literally nothing around you to ground you. You are sinking. Midnight, black, no technology. You're on the Titanic, baby. It is that deep. If you somehow do not know the plot of Gilmore Girls, let me put you on real fast. It is a brilliant mother-daughter dramedy written by Amy Sherman Palladino, following a mother and a daughter who live in Connecticut. Rory, the daughter, is this really intelligent girl whose whole goal is to go to Harvard. She ends up going to Yale. Spoiler alert, came out 20 years ago, girl. It's on Netflix, not my problem. And it's all about this mother's independence and her daughter's intelligence. And I think that those being the central messages to the society of the early 2000s was so impactful. And I have 4 older millennial sisters, so hearing If You're Out on the Road, the theme song to the show, was not an uncommon occurrence. Like, it was on in the house. And I think that that's really kind of the point. There was a whole generation of young girls who saw Rory Gilmore as the pinnacle of what it meant to be a cool main character. She was smart. She was going to Yale. She wasn't she was distracted by boys, but like, she was gonna go to Yale regardless. She was gonna go to Harvard regardless. And while I'm talking about Gilmore Girls in this video, I really think that all of the media of the late 90s, early 2000s is really centered around this. We can look at my personal favorite film, 10 Things I Hate About You, starring Julia Stiles, who busted it down in Save the Last Dance, my hip-hop queen forever and ever, amen. She was brilliant in 10 Things I Hate About You. The character, the imagery, she was smart. The whole point was for her to go to Sarah Lawrence, and she wanted to be a smart, cool girl.
Honey, that's great, but isn't Sarah Lawrence on the other side of the country?
Thus the basis of its appeal.
And the list goes on and on. It wasn't just in TV and film, it was in the music. We had Bitch by Meredith Brooks come out. We had Wannabe by the Spice Girls. No Scrubs by TLC. Later on in 2001, you have Independent Woman by Destiny's Child. And do you want to know why? Third wave feminism. In the 70s, there were really amazing progressions for women, right? Like with Title IX, women getting credit cards. Like, the independent woman was finally being put up in the front of society and in culture. And now we were getting media around it, right? So now there was a whole new impression of young girls and little brothers like me, little gay boys, watching this being like, I love girls. Like, boys are stinky. Like, I want to be a girl. Not really, but like, the girls are the cool ones. Charlie's Angel. Like, there was just so much cool media about being a smart woman. And then we get to 2001, Legally Blonde, the movie that changed all of, like, every girl in the world. As a younger brother who was around girls, I will speak confidently and say that movie inspired a lot of women to pursue higher education and to pursue being a lawyer, right? And it was pushing back on this, like, blonde bimbo trope and being like, no, the blonde girl's actually brilliant and, like, doesn't need a man to succeed, right? A lot of these films, a lot of these TV shows were really about women succeeding without men, and women being smarter than men, and women not needing men to be intelligent. And I think that really impacted that millennial generation who were in high school at the time. And for me, like, younger millennial, zillennial, whatever, like, I was watching that too and being like, oh my God, it's cool to be smart, right? Like, I learned the word incessantly from a Mariah Carey song. Incessantly, name me another fucking pop song that has incessantly on the radio right fucking now in 2025. Not a single one. Incessantly, bitch. What? No one is saying incessantly. Like, Mariah Carey deserves everything. She's brilliant. But so was every woman in the 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. The women, it was so cool to be smart. And I am talking mostly about women because I'm gonna be honest, I think that women are smarter than men just by nature. And also we see this in, like, statistics around the economy and just, like, buying power. Like, women are the most powerful demographic in the world, specifically black women as well. But I think just women at large are, like, buyers, supporters. They're gonna be there. And so when women are impacted by something culturally, we see it affect everyone else. And I truly believe that an empowered woman is, like, the most important component of, like, a healthy society, to be honest. I think that, like, a woman being like, yeah, I'm strong and independent, and I'm like, I don't need a fucking dude to, like, get my shit done. The whole world's cooking. We're all cooking with gas. When a woman is empowered and believes in herself, it benefits literally fucking everybody. Everyone does better when women are like, yeah, hell fucking yeah. But do you want to know what I personally think? Again, I'm not a historian, babes. I do not have an encyclopedia saying, hey, history for gay people. I don't got that. Sorry. No, I'm just going off my little noggin. I was there. I remember it. Do you want to know what happened? 9/11. Ooh, sorry, trigger warning. That was definitely 25 years ago, but trigger warning nonetheless. When 9/11 happened, the world got serious again. And when men needed to be serious, they stopped taking women seriously. And as I look back on that time, it feels like all of a sudden the strides that women were making, again, in this third wave feminism period, a lot of that was lost because it was like, hey, the men are talking. Hey, the boy, all right, sweetie, go get my coffee, right? 2001, Legally Blonde comes out. 9/11 happens. The next biggest chick flick, no shade whatsoever, but it was Blue Crush, which was, again, an empowering movie about surfing, but objectively, when you just look at it, it's like hot girl in bikini surfs in Hawaii. Like, it's different than, like, beautiful girl goes to law school. Right? Like, that's going to have very different impacts on, like, a culture who's watching that, right? And it felt, at least from my opinion, that it became women should be seen, not heard again, because we need escapist media. So because now the world has gotten too serious for us to actually be able to, like, put women first and invest in women's intellect, because, like, the boys are talking and, like, we're dealing with, like, foreign affairs and Osama bin Laden and, like, George W. Bush. Like, okay, sweetie, go get me a coffee and a bikini and, like, ride a surfboard. Good job. And that started to become the media that was then put forward. And honestly, even the jump from Charlie's Angels 1 to Charlie's Angels 2, you can kind of see the difference. Charlie's Angels 1 was like, oh, these girls are, like, really, really intellectual. Charlie's Angels 2 was, like, significantly more sexual, significantly more, like, scantily clad, right? But whatever, I'm not here to be, like, a purist. I'm putting forth the notion that the residual effects of it 20 years later is really the point, because what used to be cool was to be smart. That it was cool to be Rory Gilmore. It was cool to be Kat Stratford. It was cool to be Elle Woods. And now that being smart is not what's trending anymore and not aspirational, we can feel it because everyone says it's not that deep, bro. Why you guys gotta make everything so deep? Oh my God! Again, middle of the ocean! You're drowning! What do you mean it is that deep? What do you mean? Oh my God, sorry. And so I think that there's, like, a chain of events that have led us up into this point, and I don't think it's entirely on media, but I do think that it's this, like, kind of cup filling each other. Is it world events or is it media that we're consuming? Is it chicken or is it the egg? Like, which impacted the other first? But I just want to point it out and be like, yo, it was cool to be smart and now it's not, and now we're not smart. And no shade because I love this movie, but, like, Mean Girls, Regina George is the most culturally significant character to come out of the film, and, like, she was not necessarily known for, like, her intellect, right? Like, is butter a carb? Is, like, one of the most famous lines from the movie.
I can't go to Taco Bell. I'm on an all-carb diet. God, Karen, you are so stupid.
48 over 120 equals x over 100, and then you cross multiply and get the value of x.
Whatever. I'm getting cheese fries.
And so if you compare even a 6-year difference, right? 1999, Kat Stratford from 10 Things I Hate About You. My favorite line from her in that film is when she goes, remove head from sphincter, then drive. That is not the same dialogue as Regina George, right? Like, the amount of just big words. That film, 10 Things, taught me it was cool to be smart. Regina George, it was cool to be hot. It was cool to be mean. It was cool to be popular. But again, I'm not placing the blame on this film because it's just a comedy. It is not that deep, but it does have deeper ramifications. It's not completely disconnected. It's not solely dependent on Mean Girls or Simple Life starring Paris Hilton, which is my next point, 2006. Like, we then saw that hot dumb blonde was, like, the trend, and that was cool because, again, we're in escapist media time. George W. Bush is the president. We all don't really want to talk about shit that is that deep, so we want, like, escapism. Reality TV's now out. Like, it's cool to sort of be this, like, figure who's dejected from foreign affairs and, like, politics. But there was a priority shift that happened, is that we didn't do enough of a job to, as a society, right? And, like, I was a child during this, so I'm not gonna blame myself, girl. It was not my fault. I know when to take accountability, and this is not that time. But what I can say is that it doesn't seem like we were able to, like, catch it and be like, hey, by the way, while we still have a monoculture, let's make sure that it is cool to be smart. Elle Woods, still cool. Regina George, cool in a different way. She's an independent woman, absolutely 100%, but, like, are we smart? Are we encouraging that it is cool to be smart? And the funniest part is that I think Paris Hilton is a brilliant person. I think she's a brilliant business person who at this point, we all know that she's, like, played a character that's very different than who she was on TV than who she is in real life. Like, I think she's smart. The effects that the figure of Paris Hilton, the Simple Life character, was not prioritizing intellect. And I don't think that anyone's to blame. I don't think it's Paris Hilton's responsibility to educate an entire generation of people. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm more so trying to point out, like, what the fuck happened? Like, why are we so stupid? Like, why do I see so many people so many teachers in like TikTok comment sections being like, the kids cannot read. And the reason why is because I think that there isn't a monoculture anymore. We used to all be connected in the 90s. And when everyone's like, oh my God, Y2K, like I also, because I was there, I was a child. It was not low-rise jeans only. Like we thought we were gonna die. That was monoculture though. Everyone was a little freaked out by Y2K. And I think one of the last times that there was like a monocultural experience, one cultural experience where everyone is experiencing the same thing was COVID. But in a weird way, through this monocultural experience, we also had this like complete dispersal. Like the Bible talks about like the Tower of Babel. So Nimrod was this guy who threw an arrow. This is all in the Bible, a group Christian. Watch my other videos about it. Nimrod threw a spear at God, and God was like, fuck you, bitch. And was like, all you motherfuckers are speaking the same language. Now you all speak such different languages that like a father can't talk to his son and a mother can't talk to her sister, all this shit, right? So now everyone's speaking a different language. And that's what COVID felt like for me, where now everyone was having one monocultural experience and now we do not speak the same language. And so the priorities are not spread out throughout everyone who's existing on the internet. And there's this deep desire amongst Gen Z to be like nonchalant and like cool and like unbothered by things and like, oh my God, you're so pressed. But I'm like, y'all are taking that a little too far, mama, because like you should be pressed that you do not know how to read. That's the thing to be very chalant about. That's the thing to be very concerned with. You should be very terrified that you can't sign a contract. What are you talking about? And I think it's connected to the fact that there is not a monocultural figure to say, hey, this is cool. Because we got that in the 90s and early 2000s. It was Elle Woods, it was Rory Gilmore, it was Kat Stratford, it was the music, it was the like all the people that I mentioned in the beginning. It was the cultural thing, right? And there were just more cultural messages in the 90s and 2000s. Don't smoke, wear a condom, don't do drugs. That's what we knew. There are certain things that we like knew. And these days it just feels like the idea of like, hey, like go to school. Hey, like be smart. What? Like, I don't see it because when there's children who comment on my TikToks and stuff, they're like, it's not that deep, bro. But like, how do you know if it's not that deep? You not being able to understand something does not negate its depth. You not being able to comprehend a subject, it doesn't really affect the vastness of said subject. You just don't get it. But that's not like making the ocean smaller. It's still the ocean. You just can't tell for shit. You don't know what you're up against. And that's what freaks me out because I think that I see such a divide happening amongst powers that be. Like the rich and powerful, nepotism, wealthy powers that be 1%ers, their kids are going to private schools. Their kids are focusing on intellect. Those kids are not iPad kids. They will still be the powers that be. Y'all motherfuckers don't know how to sign a contract. So y'all are setting yourselves up to simply be the employee forever. Like, what are you doing? What are you building towards? Because like they got old money and new money. And you got like, and it's not that deep going viral in a TikTok comment section. Like that's your claim to fame, mama. Can you read? And it was cool to read because of characters and figures like Rory Gilmore. It was cool at one point to be smart. It is not cool to be smart. It is cool right now with where like the conservative direction of like the country and media and like boys in particular are going. It's cool to like own the libs, right? They're like, haha, gay. I'm like, cool, haha, spell miscellaneous. Like, what do you fucking mean? I am not here as a teacher, historian, healer, or life coach. I'm simply here as a gay person with a mind who is very observant. And my opinion and my observation is that when we lost TV shows like Gilmore Girls, we lost access to the prioritization of intellectualism. And that being spread out over 20 years has led to why there is such a deprioritization of intellect being the most important thing about yourself. These days, not caring seems to be the most important thing. But there's things that we should really be caring about. So if you are a child watching this, go to school, girl. Read a book because it is that deep. Mwah. See you guys later.